All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at our session here this morning. So we're going to talk today about desktop virtualization lessons from the real world. And you're going to have three speakers today. I don't really count. I'm just introducing the guys who actually have the real knowledge. Joining us today are going to be Brad Lackey, who's our Technical Enablement Manager here in Oracle Desktop Virtualization. And also Philip Fiedler, who's sitting over here, will be joining us about halfway through the presentation to give you some actual real-world deployment tips. He's done a lot of these types of deployments, and he can give you a lot of information about the work that he's done in those deployments. Here's the agenda here. We're going to go through this very quick section that I'm going to talk about here for just a minute. Then we're going to go on to Brad and then Philip. So what I'm going to do in the very beginning here for literally just a couple minutes is I wanted to give you a sense of why Oracle has any sort of concern or care about desktop virtualization. Actually, Brad and myself both came from Sun, and I think we both wondered when Oracle acquired Sun why Oracle was interested in the desktop virtualization portfolio. If you've been following us for a while, you know that we've done a lot of innovation in the product since we've been at Oracle. There's a lot of focus, a lot of emphasis on improving and extending the product since we've been here at Oracle. And the question I think that many of you probably wonder is why. So first, let's just talk about Oracle as a company just really quickly. It's a really, really big company, a lot bigger than I even understood it was actually before we got acquired. Hundreds of thousands of customers, all kinds of applications, 108,000 people work there, lots of engineers, lots of developer firepower in the organization itself, and the vast majority of that is focused around applications. So when you start thinking about the fact that desktop virtualization is really designed to make it easier for people to access applications, and then you think about the fact that Oracle is a systems company now, when you combine the hardware and the software, it makes sense that Oracle would want to be able to have a way to provide access to those applications remotely using desktop virtualization. And that's really where the basic idea comes from. So people want complete application mobility from whatever device they happen to be on. And being Oracle is primarily an applications customer, or an applications company, it makes a lot of sense on why we would want to be able to provide people a very, very high quality experience that's tested with all of our applications. We have thousands of applications that is designed to deliver those applications in the best way possible and is also able to be supported by us so that when a customer calls, they can get support from the same company that's providing the applications and the access layer and the security that goes along with that access layer and actually even the hardware involved in the whole solution. So that's really where the idea comes from. And what we think is that complexity impedes supportability. When you think about normal desktop virtualization deployments, you're going to have servers from one vendor, storage from another vendor, your applications in your desktop OS from different vendors, maybe you think clients from another vendor. It really does become a support nightmare. So the idea that you could actually call one company and get support for the entire stack, regardless of where the problem might lie in that stack, we think is really appealing for customers in terms of simplifying and making access to applications via desktop virtualization more available to more people. So here's an example of the sort of full stack kind of thing that you'll see with if you decide to go with Oracle Desktop Virtualization and leverage Oracle at every part of the stack. Now, an interesting thing here is that you don't have to use Oracle Desktop Virtualization. You don't have to use Oracle servers. You don't have to use Oracle middleware. You obviously can substitute in whatever your preferred technology is at every part in the stack if you want to, because it's a completely open solution. But you also have the option to get every one of those pieces from one vendor if you want that single source of accountability when it comes to the support side of things. So we have a few main product groups in the portfolio. We have the Oracle Virtual Desktop Infrastructure product, which is the user's entire desktop. This is kind of old news for you guys, but this is standard VDI style deployments with the desktop environment, a client OS like XP or something, running on a virtual machine in the data center. Then we have our Secure Global Desktop product, which is more or less application virtualization. The applications run in the data center, user accesses it using a web browser, applications run there, the interface is remoted to their system, and they can run applications from multiple platforms on whatever device they have in front of them. And then the last group of things we have are the Oracle Virtual Desktop clients, which are both our Sunray clients, which many of you are probably familiar with, the hardware clients. We also have software versions of those clients as well for Mac, PC, Linux, and the iPad. So those are the main groups of technologies that we have, and then I'm going to turn it over here to Brad to do the rest of this.
All right. I have my mic. Okay. All right, can everybody hear me? Yes, no, nods. All right, so how many of you were in the bake-off session next door or 2 doors down, right? So 2/3 of you. For most of you, including myself, when you hear the list of things that you have to consider when doing VDI, it's overwhelming. The number of components that VDI has to touch, the number of people you have to interface with, the number of constituents that care about those components becomes almost unwieldy. So we're going to give you some lessons from the real world, and honestly, they're going to be from my world, and what is real is perception and those kind of things. Just a quick background about what I do. Officially I'm in the nice. Thanks for tweeting me back there. I'm in the sales organization, but I am a technical lead. So my technical enablement team spends most of our time helping the field sales engineers with their product knowledge and their expertise and those components. I also spend a lot of time with support, helping them work through major support issues. I spend a lot of time with our product management, sort of feeding back where do we fail, where do we do well, those kind of things. So I get a unique combination of events that leads me to a few conclusions about doing VDI. So, and I guess before everybody's getting along with this thing, and when we get into this, a few words of encouragement. And obviously the first one is, don't do it. VDI is incredibly complex. Even though most of the vendors, including ourselves, have products that are getting better, VDI is tough. Most of you will probably approach it in the wrong manner, and we'll hope to fix that here. So don't do VDI unless you really have decided that you want it. But why not, right? Isn't our talk about VDI and Oracle as a VDI, and we have good products, and our sales team over here and our couple of marketing guys over here just crap themselves a little bit when I said not to do it. But really the reason why I'm suggesting don't do it is that most of you will probably screw it up. Not that because you guys aren't capable engineers, not that you're good at your jobs, not that you aren't smart people, but you will probably have the wrong approach. And that approach is usually differed by the fact that all of your engineers, and you have this shiny thing syndrome, right? Where the big shiny thing comes across the screen, and we get distracted by technology. And that technology for technology's sake, for the advancement of something new, to change what we've had before, is not the right approach to do VDI. And what happens is that we install the technology, and as soon as we install the technology, as soon as we get to the bake-off side of our projects, the projects get derailed almost immediately because we start turning knobs, we start trying to test the limits of all the features that these products have. And when we do that, we typically spend 8 to 12 months doing our proof of concepts. We'll do another 6 to 8 doing our pilot, and then we fail, because it never moves to actually deploying something that's useful for somebody in your company. It's this shiny thing is very much like gravity, right? Failing is inevitable if you keep staring at the ground. But the next question is, shouldn't we want all of the features? Why shouldn't we try to give all of the flexibility, all of the functionality that's possible with these products? And what happens is that we get this more is better approach, and we tend to equate product features to project requirements. I get so many RFPs and RFIs that are asking for vendors' responses to a list, and it's almost exactly a list of the features of one of our competitors' products. It's never exact. It's never related to what their users are going to be doing with it. It's more of, hey, can you do A, B, C, and D? We all have our checkboxes, and we all can fill out those matrices. And for me, it's an indication to me that the project has failed already, and that's in the RFX sort of stage of things for these things. And when I ask about the drivers for the technology questions, right? I ask, well, why are you interested in this feature? Most of the time, they can't tell me. Or I get a response that's marketing speak that I can easily recognize from one of our competitors. And no offense really, but this is a glaring sign that you guys don't know what your users are doing. or you don't really know how what they're doing affects your business. And this is really IT doing stuff for IT's sake, and VDI falls in that bucket, 99 times out of 100. And we try really hard on our projects and with our partners to sort of shift the conversation from technology to a conversation about business goals. So what can you do to resist, right? What can you do to stop this constant looking about what's new and what's not new, or how many knobs and buttons are on this box, right? You have to resist this technology, and we're all engineers, and judging on the number of jeans and T-shirts we have floating around in here, we are less concerned about the business side of it and what our company does than we are about installing technology. So how do you do that, right? How do we resist this technology? We really want to stop being engineers, and that's very hard for us to do. And in order to do that, we have to be immensely, resoundingly, and completely focused on the goals of our business. IT goals, while they're the carrot that's nearest to us, and oftentimes we're incented by achieving those goals, and it's the reason we keep trying to shuffle new technology. Most of the time they're financial goals. Those goals don't really offer any value to anybody but IT. We can make their email run faster. We can help our customers and our users install their newest apps. But that in itself doesn't derive business value for us. And I know this, right? Connecting the dots to what we do as IT engineers every day to the business value is really hard. Don't upgrade for upgrade's sake, right? There's no reason to change something that you already have because you want something new or shiny. Most IT and advancements typically don't benefit the users. We spend a lot of time installing newer servers, trying to make our lives easier. And in the end, it doesn't necessarily make our users' lives any easier. So I kind of describe this as connecting the pain chain, right? So this is about connecting business requirements through to actual tactical things you can do to fix it. So if you don't start with your key business requirements and then move down to discovering the procedures and policies that can affect your business goals, you'll never end up discovering the tactical things that you can change. And if technology can't solve a tactical pain that is equal to a business requirement, then it's totally not worth your money, and you probably don't deserve the paychecks you've got to install it. And the very next thing that most people say is, well, fine, they'll list some key business requirements, and they'll discover some procedures that are very good or that need improving to solve those things. But they'll make such generalizations with it that practically any project they have will fit into those buckets and improve them. So if it's not measurable, if it's not something that your finance department or your CEO is actually going to be interested in you improving, then it probably isn't a project that you should work on. It's connecting those dots, which is hard to do. So what's wrong with VDI in doing this? Well, not much is wrong with VDI specifically, but everything around VDI is the problem, right? So the technology is very, very good. Most of the vendors have products that are becoming more mature. They're having enterprise features embedded in them. I'm personally very proud of our products, and they've come a long ways over the last 10 years that the combination of Sun and Oracle have been doing this. But in the end, VDI touches so many components of your environment that it ends up being this giant hammer, right? And VDI is such a big hammer. I like to use an analogy to do VDI project. And this is really sort of my lessons, my basic lessons to you guys is, it's so big you have to be very careful. You have to pick the nail you're going to go after with this big hammer. You have to make sure you line the nail up where you want to nail it together. You don't want to miss the two pieces you're connecting. You want to aim it. You definitely want to aim it again. And just for good sake, you might make sure that you're not going to drop it on your toe. And And then after you've aimed, you want to take a very clean swing at this nail. And because you only get one chance to do it before the project is lost and you've pissed your users off to the point where you'll never get a shot again. So take your time, do a lot of studying early on, and make a clean swing. And then when you're through with that, repeat it. Find another nail, find the other pieces you're going to do, line it up, and aim the hammer again. Now, how do we pick this thing, right? Who gets VDI first for us? Most VDI projects fail because they intend to do it for everyone. So we like to really focus on a set of user groups that can be easily defined. And it doesn't really necessarily mean they have a simple use case or a simple set of use cases. It just means that's something that's understood. So fixed function is very good. So things like call center, things like healthcare, and any group where you can understand what they're doing. Now, it's not always easy to understand what they're doing, but you have to be able to define it, and it has to be pretty fixed function. So general purpose PC replacement is not a good fit for VDI. And I'll repeat that again. General PC replacement and coming up with a strategy and trying to understand all of the possibilities is not a good fit for VDI. So first is pick your nail and its fixed function. And we'll go from there. But what do they really need, right? What do our users need? This is the line it up portion, right? We've picked the groups we're going to use. We're going to line up what we're going to do with VDI. Study your users. Most of VDI projects get to the technology up front. They start with the technology, and they have to start with your users. Spend a bunch of time analyzing what your users are doing. Day-to-day operations, day-to-day applications that they're using, what data they need to access, what devices they need to use. What do they do in their job, and how can you help them do their job better? Ask them what they think they need, ask their management what they think they need, and then confirm in reality what they're actually doing with it. Because depending on who you ask, they'll have a different set of requirements and a different set of things that they believe and use every day. Confirm what you heard by doing some checking. There's some good automation tools for that. Who clicked on what apps did they run, what data did they access. And at the end of this is really about the success of your project. If you can deliver what they need, and you can deliver that in a way that improves a processor or a performance for them that adds to a key business requirement for your organization, right? You've actually earned your pay. All right, so we're going to aim this hammer, right? We're going to aim this hammer by choosing a vendor, and a couple of comments about choosing a vendor. Most of the vendors offer more than 10 times the amount of features and functionality that the VDI projects need. We all think we need the whole laundry list of features, and in the end, you really only need a subset of those that equate to what your user groups and their use cases need. Most of those features are distractions for us in these projects. And again, some of those features that you won't need are kind of the coolest ones, right? We think it's impressive that we can move VMs around and we can slice VMs or slice user experience at various spots. But what happens is we get distracted by that ability, and we're trying to apply these to a situation that is much more simple, much more fixed that we've defined. Since most of the VDI technology is similar, there's differences here and there, but in the end, we're all headed to the same spot. There's no reason why one vendor or another will have an advanced feature for very long. So in the end, it's really about the other tangible things when selecting a vendor, right? Who can you get support from, and how difficult is it to get support for all the components of your desktop infrastructure? Which company can you purchase all the components from at a single point in time? Do they have any licensing or bundle features that fit your usage model? Concurrent? Do they have different tiers of their product? Meaning, I have to buy the advanced pack plus the extension pack plus the yearly support license to get all the features I want, but I only really wanted one feature at the end here. And which of those models fits best for your company? And there's some stark differences there between the vendors. And to my colleague partner here, Philip, go with a vendor that has competent certified partners Not the largest number of partners, not the, I don't think they have to have a guy on site with you like the bake-off guy said every minute. Honestly, that's expensive for them and will probably be expensive for you in the end, right? Having a vendor who's going to sit out there for very long probably isn't going to give you the discounts you want because they just spent 3 months standing at your desk teaching you how to do this. But you do need competent partners. You do need somebody that you can pick up and call on the phone, and can be there during key milestones of your projects. So we're going to aim our second time, right? And so this is the hardest one for most people to do. They spend too much time in their proof of concepts. They spend too much time fiddling in their sandbox, turning the knobs, trying to understand what the boundaries of this thing will do. They spend too much time in here. So proof of concept, time frame is important. Put a time limit on it. In order to cover what you perceived ahead of time are the biggest hurdles. Some of the small hurdles and some of the things that may not be the key drivers for them, you don't necessarily need to cover those in your proof of concept. They're sort of, most of the vendors have that technology, they have that feature. It's not paramount to the business or to the use case. So cover your perceived biggest hurdles. I like to purchase the gear for the POCs, and yes, I'm a vendor, and yes, I'd like you to buy something for me, even small amounts, but the point is of purchasing the gear is it's that milestone that says at a point in time where I'm going to spend some money that says I am in this and I am in it because I mean it. And what that shows is that you've done your due diligence, you've done your homework, you've done the studying, you've analyzed what the vendors are, and when you've done that, and when you spend money on the POC, it's very real for everybody. It's very real for your budget. It's very real for the project and for your management. That signals, look, this is something that we intend to do. In addition, it gives you a bunch of real things that are beneficial in your proof of concept. One, you can get access to your vendor support and their knowledge base. You get access to, if you have an issue, if you've uncovered a bug or you've uncovered a install problem, you can call support. You can get access to the knowledge bases. Some of those are locked behind passwords, and you get access to those. No license expiring issues. There's been literally hundreds of projects that have had huge delays for license expiry, and that doesn't necessarily mean Microsoft licenses. It could be vendor licenses. It could be licenses for your storage. It could be all types of things. But buy it like you mean it for your proof of concept. It doesn't have to be 1,000 seats, but do buy it like you mean it. And finally, on the proof of concept, resist anything but delivering what your end users require. So the proof of concept is all about the end users. Can you deliver that experience? Can you deliver their improved business needs and get after that? The other thing that happens here is we all want to test the IT side of this. We all want to test, how does it scale? How do we manage it? How do we operate this thing? How do we deploy it? How do we stage and grow over time? And in the proof of concept phase, you don't have nearly enough gear, nearly enough users, nearly enough data to be focusing on those things. Because if you focus on all of those things and don't get to your user use cases, you've spent and wasted a ton of time and a ton of money. But yes, we're going to aim one more time, and this aim is finally did we get it right? And this is the pilot phase, and this is also one where you want to make sure you put a time limit and set yourself a goal. And you can push the goal, but without a decision point, like we're going to run the pilot for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, it'll last forever, and you will never grow, and you will never deploy this thing permanently. Pick real users for your pilot. We want the pilot to go so well. We spent all of this time through our proof of concept and studying our users. We want this thing. So we cherry pick users that will either overlook issues, or we cherry pick ones that will not exercise our environment to the full extent. So definitely no cherry picking. Get a good slice. A pilot doesn't have to be all of your users, but it has to be representative of the workload and the work activities that they're going to be doing. This is the point at which our little internal IT guy, our little IT engineer can run wild. This is where you're going to test your scalability estimates. This is where you're going to worry about, watch how the thing is being managed. This is where you're going to talk about HA. This is where you're going to do it for real, but not until the pilot, not until you've really satisfied that user desire. And when you find the pilot, you will identify things that you've missed, because there will always be something that one user goes, hey, I need my XYZ, and it needs to access the data that's written on my piece of paper through a scanner. You're going to miss those things, right? But if you don't, if you plan properly, those things will probably be small. They will probably paramount to one guy, but not paramount to the remainder. All right, so we're going to deploy this thing, and you need a clean swing to do this, right? So this is all about how do we go from pilot to production in a way that's controlled and understood. First one, and probably my favorite, is user certified partner. So Oracle has several certified partners. Our competitors have certified partners, but those are the guys that have the experience. They've been in the trenches. They spent the months freezing their tails off in the data center at God knows when, and they know the idiosyncrasies of these products. So absolutely, positively deploy with a partner. Without that expertise, most of you will spend twice as much to 3 times as much time as you need to deploying by yourselves. It's worth the investment for sure. I had a half dozen or so projects that attempted to deploy right before they were being busy. So either Christmas rush or tax season, or we're opening 2,500 new stores, and that was their goal, was to do VDI, was to have VDI ready for that. And the problem with that is they didn't have enough time to let it bake. So they did their VDI environment, they scaled it up, and it didn't. They were trying to be ready for this big event rather than being ready before the big event and giving them enough time to bake it in. So this is one of those things that give yourself ample time, prepare with significant advance warning, so that when your ramp for your big season, or your ramp for your big event, is all about increasing the size of something you already have, not deploying something new or greenfield. And then the other part of deployment is stopping and taking a breath, right? So I've seen users get it running. They'll get VDI up and going. They have 500 users on it. They're pretty excited about it, and they rush to expand, and they go from 500 to 2,000 users, and they try to do it very quickly without doing nearly enough analysis on the types of infrastructure scaling that they're using today. They don't know. They haven't had enough time for peaks and valleys, right? So they'll do it, let's say, during July, and a third of their staff is off on vacation, or they will measure over a couple of months, and they'll miss quarter end. And so take enough time to get an understanding of what you've done before you move forward. They call it a marathon back there and not a sprint. I don't really think that analogy works. It is, I think calling it a marathon means that you won't ever get it deployed at all. I think it's short bursts of effort. So it's much more like football, right? So we call our play, we line it up, we deploy VDI, we make some headway on it, and we decide, well, what did we do with that headway? How did that work for us? We plan it out, and we do it again. So this stepped approach is much better than the big bang. And the second part of this is, well, what did you learn? So we picked our user group. We gave them something that works for them, that delivers their business value, not necessarily an IT value, although that may be good for us in the backside of it. But did it actually work? We will use what we learned about the vendors. We'll use what we learned about our personal capabilities, and whether we're good at project management skills, or whether we're good at understanding our storage technology. We take what we've learned and we'll do it again. And it's the same process, right? Big hammer, pick your user group, understand what they're doing. Don't just tack them on. Don't just tack a new user group onto your current VDI environment without the study. It's do these in blocks. And I know plenty of you in here are, what about any tech lessons, right? What about IOPS and high availability and which protocol is the best and which UEM should I buy and all those kind of things. There are plenty of other breakouts for this, right? Go to those, use those. Those vendors in their environment are very specialized at what they do, and they're really good. Don't go get a Lucky sandwich. I don't know if anybody's seen Man vs. Food, but he goes up and he eats this sandwich. It's about that big. Don't do that, or you'll miss out. A couple of my favorite keys ones. People want to do VDI, and then when they want to do VDI, they're like, well, how many clowns can I get in the car, right? How many VMs can I run on a box? I think that's an important number, but in general, it's one of those things that you will understand what your hardware is capable of. In 6 months, there'll be hardware that's capable of doing more. It's sort of an iterative thing. Don't oversubscribe your memory. Oversubscribing memory is, while all of the vendors, including us, can do it, it's one of those things that almost every time fails. They take too long the caches take too long to get hot, and so don't oversubscribe memory. It's like jumping off a cliff. The scalability is almost an immediately halt for all of your users. So that's a big one. CPU oversubscription is good. You're going to do lots of VMs. It's pretty linear, and I know, well, if I had 10 more VMs, I'll get a X% decrease for everybody, and that's understandable and that's manageable. But it's relatively linear. Storage, plenty of discussion about storage. Everybody knows that storage is the linchpin for this thing. It's the hardest thing to do. It's the most expensive component. Really high level lessons on storage is almost everybody's assumptions about what their users are doing on their desktops and their storage requirements are wrong. You should test those and validate those during your pilot. And a lot of times in storage, sometimes the cheaper method is actually as fast as the more expensive method of doing storage. So these SSDs that everybody's kind of excited about that are still insanely expensive don't tend to always be the right way to go about storage. So in-memory caching is really where I like to focus on storage. Find a storage vendor that'll let you do read and write RAM caching in RAM. Most of the desktop workloads, it's not exactly mission critical like your databases and those kind of things. So, because most of our desktops aren't protected anyway in the event of a power outage, right? Power outage of a call center, any of that work in progress will be gone. So in a VDI environment, everybody's worried about, well, let's get our write caches down, and let's drop those on SSDs. I just be careful of the SSD big shiny thing, right? So VDI for healthcare. I think we're going to transition to my buddy Philip.
Thanks, Brad. I think the first section there, this is just a moment here while they're switching microphones. The first section there, I think Brad was really talking primarily about being more disciplined in your approach when you're doing pilots. I think I hadn't seen some of that content. My favorite bullet in there, being I drive a Honda Pilot, was you might be stuck in pilot forever. That kind of scared me a little bit, actually. I don't want to be stuck in pilot forever. But for this last section, we're going to have Philip Fiedler come up and talk. And Philip is one of our partners, and he runs the professional services organization for open technologies. And he's going to give you some very, very specific lessons that he learned in some deployments that he's done. So, you ready, Philip?
You bet. Anybody here? So, good morning. Understanding VDI in healthcare. So, Brad's got some real world from his world perspective. I hope to give you some real world from the customer and user perspective, as well as the partner's perspective. So, hello, my name is Philip. I work for Open Technologies. We're a partner out of Des Moines, Iowa, but we cover the upper Midwest. And really what I want to share with you is lessons learned, experience gained. And those aren't just in healthcare. So here, I'm going to have some specific things that focus on healthcare, but overall, I'm going to cover a lot of stuff that I covered and experienced and learned from a user's perspective as well as our perspective in education, elementary education, high school, commercial, call centers, a variety of stuff. So what I'm going to talk about really applies to a lot of different verticals out there and experiences in those. So I like to be a true and as real as possible. So certainly we covered everything from the design, implementation, and we're also an arm and support some smaller environments. Though, and then on the outside we probably see a good 50% or more of the people out there who implement it on their own or implement it with another partner, struggling in some fashion, struggling to some amount of what they can do and how they do it, but it doesn't work real well, so they're all struggling. So we also provide assessments and helping them understand where and what areas they can improve. We don't do any rip and replace, we just typically help them how to improve their existing environment and make it better. So Brad really touched on a couple of areas that we often hit with the assessment that helps improve these environments. So a lot of times I can see out here, probably some of you are already well into VDI, works great, just looking to make things better, or looking for the greatest and latest. Some of you out here are not deployed yet, and you're looking to deploy and seeing how to best make this happen or what technology I should work with. And then, like I said, there's probably a good number of you out here that are like, oh, shit, this thing's not really working very well. You know, I'm looking for that magic bean, that magic bullet to help me make this and pull this through. So those out here looking for that probably either, most likely, didn't implement it yourself. It was a directive from an executive, a directive from a boss who shoved it down on you and says, make this happen. Maybe they're already gone and you are now left with the pieces to put it together to make it happen. So I know that's there, I know it's real, and I know it's out there. So what I'm going to do is cover, like I say, it says healthcare, but I'm going to cover a lot of different areas. But I want to break down those experiences in several categories. Really, how did it all start? How did you get started, and why did you go down that road? You know, what was your guiding light? Knowing the business, it's about the use cases, and covering the integration. IOPS to doctors. So glitch management. The reality is things happen, things break. How do I manage that? So really there's some components there. And then I want to share some VDI architectures and specific architectures and features of VDI that seem to really engage well with healthcare and things that they like, things that make them work well. And then share with you a few diagrams of environments for success, some example environments. So really getting started. So you know where we all came from. We came from buying PCs. And that whole process of buying and deploying the PCs, we had to acquire the PCs. It gets shipped to you. It gets on your loading dock. You put an asset tag on it. You had to take it and you deploy. You had to image it. And then you put it on someone's desk. It sits there for a few years. You get another batch of PCs. Those people who got the newest PCs now want the newer PCs. So those things are taken off the desk. They're re-imaged, put somewhere else, and they get the new one with the same process. That's the PC shuffle, as I call it. So, you know, typically you're going to get 3 to 5 years out of a cycle, and that's traditional. And then that PC shuffles its way through the organization until it's out, and then you have to decommission, destroy the hard drive, and get rid of it. So, after doing that for about 10 years, some of us, all of us, we're like, there's enough of that. There's a better way of doing this. You know, VDI certainly has glimmers of light, glimmers of hopes to get rid of that PC shuffle. Empires must have changed or devolved. Empires in some of the really large organizations buying thousands of these things, shuffle them in, shuffle them out, thinking, better way, there's got to be a better way. But I say, really, are you still doing it that way? Are you still doing it the way of the 90s? That's so, you know, so 90s. So how does VDI start for some of these? And I've seen it in a lot of different ways. It's an idea, read something in the article, saw something from a buddy, maybe it was a push from a vendor. You already have a vendor in there that says, hey, what about this? Try this, try this, try this, you know. Or maybe it was a directive from an executive that says, hey, we got to do something new. You know, maybe he just wants a feather in his cap and says, let's just find something new for the IT to do and give them something new to think about. You know, these things start in different ways. But when it does start, keep your eyes open. Don't go with blinders. Don't just blindly pick a product and run with it. Don't get lazy. Do your part. You know, a lot of your engineers, your technical people, you know, don't make a decision that a secretary can make. No slam on secretaries, but you have the experience, you have the education, training. Don't just pick an easy thing just because they can. So I like to use an analogy. When Imagine, for the guys out there with wives and girlfriends, imagine you went and bought a purse for her. Heaven forbid you buy a purse. I don't know anybody who would buy a purse for their wife, but because it's a bad decision. It's a bad decision because imagine you're in the mall and you're in the sporting goods store and you got your stuff, you're walking on the mall and you go to the big shopping mall at the end, the big store shopping, the Kohl's, the Macy's, and you walk through and there's the purses. You have a brain fart and you decide to get a purse for your girlfriend or your wife, right? So you're looking at those purses and there's a bunch of purses that are all common. Lots of them there. It's like, oh, maybe I should get one of those. There's a whole bunch of those. Apparently everybody likes those because they're selling a lot of those. Or maybe I should get this real glittery purse up here. It shines a lot. How nice. So you get a purse, you take it home, you take it to your wife, and depending on the personality of your wife, she might say, what the H-E double Hofstadter was you thinking? Why did you buy me a purse? And maybe you might have a personality of another wife that would say, well, you only got one wife, but another person with a different wife would say, oh, that's sweet, honey, that's nice of you for getting that purse. But in the end, you're going to fail because if it's like my wife, it doesn't have enough pocket, it's got too many pockets, it's too big, it's too light, too shiny, too something, the strap doesn't fit right. Why would I even try to do that? So really, it's it's the engineering part. Don't just grab something because it looks good. So in the end, you got that purse, you got it home, she doesn't like it, now you got to try to spray paint it, you got to patch it. This is the analogy to VDI. Keep me in sync here, guys. So VDI, you got something and now you're trying to make it work for you. So you're modifying that purse and trying to make it work for her because you just bought it. So maybe you went and paid, $2,000 for the purse. You said, I got everything in it that I want. Then I know I won't go wrong. So I'll just overbuy and get what I want. So in the end, she ain't going to like it anyway. So now you overbought something. You got too many features, too glittery, too many stuff. So really, keep your eyes open. Don't get lazy. So I'm going to get into, really what were your objectives when you got into VDI. So keep in mind, though, I see too many. There's no room for personal biases when you're going to VDI. It's a technology. Do your work. Do your diligence. Do it a proof of concept. Do your engineering studies to figure it out. But keep in mind that you got a lot of pressure from the top and the bottom. But keep in mind that vendors sell to people. They don't sell to organizations. And then keep in mind that you buy for your organization. You don't buy for yourself. So make your decision not on your personal biases or what you want. Make it for the organization and for the requirements of what they need. And one other piece of getting started, it's the IT challenge. This is the IT boat. It's a massive boat for some. So I've done hospitals that are as small as, 10 beds, 12 beds, as hospitals that are conglomerate of hospitals, 15 to 18 hospitals in a hospital organization, spreading VDI across those. I'm personally involved in those, so I've seen the small to big. It doesn't matter if you're small or big. You got a ship. It's a big ship, small ship, but they all have similar problems. The problem is just scale or the benefits scale. But in reality, it's a big, challenging tussle that you just got to work your way through. So keep the boat afloat, keep it upright, and keep it moving forward. So the guiding lights, picking out a VDI, you got to have a business objectives. So what we find is I first go in and I do the POC or I go and do a presentation on the topics. I'll sit down and I'll try to get with the highest executives possible and ask them, what are your objectives? Half the time, they don't have objectives until they see the list. They're like, hey, that's some good objectives. Or it just helps them formulate what they're thinking into words and says, that does jive, I relate to that. They're not to make it all bad, but there certainly is good direction, good people, good thinking in the right way. They just may not have it formulated. Like I said, your engineers, your technical people, stay technical, approach it with an analytical approach. So some people, their process is improve employee workflow. They want to improve efficiencies. So one of the larger hospitals we worked with did a study before we started VDI. And the nurses had desktops in the hospital, the patient's room. They had them in the nursing station. They had them in the hallways, had them in a variety of places. And they did a study and watched how many times those nurses logged in and out of those PCs before they got VDI. And they were finding that up to 22 times an hour. So you imagine a nurse gets to a station, she logs in, waits for it to log in, and then, if it's the first time, she's creating a profile. But she logs in, she gets her information, does her stuff, brings up her EMR, enters her patient data, logs out, goes to the next one. Doing that 22 times an hour, can you imagine? Certainly that cries for VDI. But, and you imagine, and then now with the VDI, we did a proof of concept in that particular thing 2 years ago. You know, she's just moving from station to station seamlessly with her VM following her. You can imagine the efficiencies that followed that. So for them, huge benefits in workflow and efficiencies. So for some, it's increased access to business application and closely related, improved data security. So secure application access. Providing a secure application access across the hospital, across the floor. If you imagine multiple hospitals, be able to jump between the hospitals and have it. A lot of hospitals have remote offices, just like regular businesses or schools. Imagine a school district with lots of elementary schools and middle schools and high schools, be able to jump between those at a staff level and to get your desktop. But you need to do it securely. Everything's about data. Particularly in hospital and healthcare, there's a lot of requirements around data protection. So for others, you know, really when you go through these business objectives, for you it may only be one or two, maybe all of these, but you certainly got to have some of these as your guiding light. So when you get to the end of the project, it says, well, did I achieve it? Did I achieve my goal? So just to finish the rest of these, reduce the desktop cost, capital expenditure, operational expenditure. So it seems like when VDI started a number of years ago, and I started back shortly after 2000, and I did start with the Oracle Sunray 1 when that first came out. I don't know if some of you saw it. It's a big box, has a smart card in it. It was one of the first, if not the only, zero client as they called it, but we called it ultra thin client back then. And certainly we moved into, and I worked with a variety of products and a variety of vendors. But really at that time, the big buzz was, oh, save some money, save some money, save some money. But the PCs kept getting cheaper too. So really, was it a savings in the end? No. But the initial cost, initial purchase, as we find, is about the same. I'm going to buy into VDI. It was about the cost of buying those 500 PCs plus the servers. So the initial cost wasn't the same. So day one cost typically isn't going to be any better. You should find, and could find, depends on how your environment runs and what your requirements are, day 2, day 3, day 4, you're going to start to see some savings. So there is savings to be gained. It depends on who you are, though. Are you a school? Are you healthcare? What are you? You know, there's different outcomes for what you have. Maybe some of your business objective is enhancing your level of IT services. You know, IT is more than just running out there fixing a hard drive and a fan and a PC. We want to provide an enhanced, higher level of support for our customers, give them a better tools to do their job, and overall the company makes more money. And maybe just improving IT response time. So we have a large library with a bunch of thin clients in it. And you know, before they came in, PCs died. It's reality. They did. What do? They get that 8.5 by 11 sheet of white paper right out of order, put a tape on the front of the monitor, and it sits for a few days, right? So maybe a lot of organizations says enough of that. We just want to eliminate some of that stuff. So that's reality. So know the business. You know, some of the lessons learned is really know the business, particularly with healthcare. It's really 365, 24 hours. So maybe I should have wrote that as 24-hour, 365. Really, it really is. A lot of organizations out there can have that downtime. They can have the evening, only got one shift. But in healthcare, go, 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 go. Never stop, never end. You know, there's hardly ever a time when you can afford to ever be down. So picking your technology that can be upgraded on the fly, can run on the fly, that's got built-in high availability, I can run across multiple data centers. So certainly we have that in some places where we are running to multiple data centers. It's amazing still, though, even non-healthcare, how some organizations have put in a single server, spin up some VDI desktops, and go with it. I'm thinking, you know, okay, maybe 1 or 2 desktops, you kind of like the PC. But the more the people you shove in that box, the more people are going to be down, the more it affects your business. And in healthcare, it's the ultimate. It's the ultimate. It's always got to run. So in healthcare, knowing your business, you're running all the time. You got nurses, doctors, staff. Really, doctors, I got doctors' rules. I used to have in there, doctors are king, but someone recommended I take that out because it's kind of strong. But, you know, reality in organizations, the doctors would bring in the patients pay the bills. Really, everything must work and must work exactly the same. So in a couple of different hospitals, more than one, I've learned that the IT manager was called up into the CFO and CIO's office a few times. And a doctor was complaining that the icon on his desktop had moved. And he went straight to the top to complain about that. That's reality happens. You know, they want it exactly the same every time, everywhere, right? That's that common user experience wherever they go. And that's reality, that's true. And that was in more than one place that you know, it came down onto the IT because that icon moved and might have moved just to the side. But at that moment, he had to take a look for it. But the reality, you think that's kind of picky, but the reality what it is technology like VDI should be transparent. It shouldn't inhibit what they're doing. They don't care about the technology, only to the fact that it helps them get work done. Don't put a lot of glitter and a lot of glamour and make things work this way, that way. Make it so it works transparently as possible for them. We don't want that to be in the way or prohibit them from getting their stuff done as efficiently as possible. And really that applies to the nurses. I say nurses do the work. You know, they're the ones on the floor all day, all the time. They're the ones going from patient room to the nursing station, dispensing the meds, scanning the barcode scanner on the wrist to get the meds, you know, associated with the patients. You know, all of that's interacting with VDI. And if they're doing all that stuff, they don't have to deal with the logins, they don't have to deal with profile, they don't have to deal with the desktop themselves. Everything has to be transparent and quick and easy as possible. So keep it simple, keep it out of their way. Another part of the hospitals, in particular, knowing your business. Now, like I say, you can find different apps, different things for your organization if you're not healthcare, but EMR is the make it, break it app. It seems that EMR doesn't work there, then no one's going to get their work done. So the electronic medical records, as EMR stands for, you know, really that has to work on the desktops. And a lot of those applications, particularly with healthcare, are written for, I don't know, Windows 3.1 or something. They don't, a lot of them don't abide by the Windows print driver queues. They have their own queues, and they need to work in a certain way. So when a nurse is at a particular station and she wants to print out some records, it has to print to the nearby printer. When she goes down the hall and she wants to print down there or in a different floor, it's got to print out near them. You know, that's part of a feature that certainly we have with VDI and some VDI technologies is follow me printing, the ability for that printer to follow it. So those are technologies that are transparent, but the EMR has to be aware in this particular case. The EMR has to be aware of how well and where that prints. And so there's a lot of integration. If you can't integrate with the EMR, then you better start back at step one. So last piece, remote access. You can imagine healthcare, as I said, lots of offices, lots of different locations, lots of remote offices. Doctors are always on call, it seems like. But they got the clinics and a lot of remoteness. So a lot of you know, users are mobile 24/7, truly, anytime, anywhere, everywhere. So, and I got BYOD, bring your own device. We find that doctors all have iPads, or it seems like it. And they all want to use them in all devices, and typically their own iPads. And we're seeing that more and more applications and more locations, people wanting to use their own devices and connect with the VDI system. So, knowing your business. Now in healthcare and elsewhere, you know, really it's all about the use cases. You know, use cases. Define system requirements from use cases that maximize workflow efficiency. What's a use case? Right? So I'm gonna know my business and I gotta know my users, know how people, how I'm gonna use them. But what's a use case, right? What we define as a use case is really, in this case, a nurse. A use case might start from the moment the nurse, and it's a documented procedure, documented action or workflow. A nurse walks up to a terminal, a thin client. If she's using a smart card, use a smart card. If it's biometrics, proximity, whatever it might be, she walks up, she logs in this certain way, this app launches in this way. Then she, you know, or he does this, this, or this, and logs out. You know, you define what those patterns of various steps you do as use cases. So it's all about the use cases. If you have defined the use cases, you have defined the behavior of your users and how they use the system, then you define all of the characteristics about the system that you need to do, right? So if something ever breaks, I can refer back to the use cases to say, well, hey, that's a new way you're using it. When we did that POC or when we did that project or that pilot, we said we're only going to do this or this or this or this. We define how we're going to use it. But if some point in time, 6 months later, say it's broke, well, it's not really broke, you're now deciding to use it in a new way, let's document that. That's a use case. Document the use case, and we'll say, hey, let's add or enhance the system, modify the system to allow for the use case. So it's all about the use cases. Train your users based on the use cases. You understand and diagnose your system based on the use cases. So integration, this can be interesting. So applications, the network, and as you probably heard and know many times. So starting from the bottom, the network, you used to have Scott McNeely say, the computer is the network, and we all struggle with what that meant. The same as 5-10 years ago, we all struggled what virtualization meant. I don't think we can all out here say, yeah, I knew what virtualization was right out of high school. What virtualizing storage was, what virtualizing servers was, what's virtualizing desktops. Those are concepts we all had to learn and understand. It took us all a different amounts of time to figure out what that meant, and we all get a better grasp every day of what that can mean in the future. But likewise, the network, the computer is a network. We're not doing anything on virtualization or virtual desktops without a good network. So the network is fundamental. What we find a lot is there's IP-based phones on the networks now. There are a lot of other traffic. A lot of traffic is getting prioritized, sometimes higher than your desktop traffic. So it's all integrated, and all I can say there is you just have to have good pipes, good networks, and check the protocol priorities and the routing. So storage, high availability, IOPS, RAID, SSDs. Yeah, if you might hear, it's all about the IOPS. So I did an assessment at a hospital, and we didn't implement, we just did an assessment there. So we did an assessment from the doctor's perspective, nurse's perspective. So we did assessment, documented a little bit of the use cases, and went through the whole organization and found that this fairly large hospital ended up with running their VDI off of one RAID group. One RAID 5 RAID group. It was running for him, it was great, but what if when he has that disk failure? Sure, he has that rebuild. That rebuild takes a lot of IOPS out of that disk group. Maybe he's like running here and he's just at the edge of tripping this thing over until it falls on his face. But if you have a disk rebuild, then he's losing IOPS. And heaven forbid he had 2 disk failures. The entire hospital down. So don't do crazy stuff like that. Build yourself with an infrastructure that's going to last. You're putting a lot of people onto consolidated machines, few systems, think about it. So think about your network, think about your storage. So IOPS, there's basic calculators out there that calculate the IOPS out of RAID groups, out of systems. The SSDs put a little spin on it that makes it harder to calculate pure IOPS, but you can get that out of the basic drives. So really, when you do this and the whole talk, and the bottom line here is take an engineering approach. Take an engineering approach when you design this. Know how many users I can get per my system. Have an idea of users per core, users per RAM, users for the network interface. And then know what your limits are. You might have a system that might work great, everything's purring along just fine, but how close are you to the edge? How close are you that if I add 5 more people, am I going to trip over the edge? Do you know? Do you know how close you are to what you can add? Are you just going to all right, good, we added 5 more people, everything's good, we're good, right? Can I add 5 more and be good? Have some accountability, have some analytics, have some understanding of what your system design is. Where are you at the edge and how much can I add to it? So have some metrics about your servers, have some metrics on your storage level, have some metrics at the desktop level. So integration at the desktop, I'm working my way from the bottom up here. Understand physically the placement of it, with respect to how your users use it, how they access it, how they're authenticating, the method of authenticating, the approaches, all the applications are authenticating to. And then, at the application level, the peripherals. So I show up here a barcode scanner. That's an example of them scanning the meds on the barcode scanner on the patient's wrist. Understand the peripherals involved, the personnel, the locations that they're used. So I also have an example of a phone. In this particular case, this is a phone that integrates with the Sunrays and the Oracle VDI system. There's a smart card plugged into the bottom of it. So that phone system, the extension follows the user. So not only they make their desktop follow them where they go, they can make their phone extension follow them as well. So there's a lot of integration capabilities, and then you got to take those all into account. What's important? What do I need? So down to a last couple of slides, and then I think we'll have a question answering. But glitch management, as much as you try, nothing goes perfect. You write a program, you always got a bug in it, unless it's 2 lines, right? But you're always going to have something, and how well you manage the glitches or how you manage the errors is how well you're going to recover. I always said when you're writing a program, the best programmer is not the guy who can write the code the fastest. It's the guy who can debug it the fastest, because someone's always going to have errors, right? And these days with Google, it's not the person who knows the information, it's the person who can find it the quickest, right? So it's like the programming. Glitch management, glitches are going to happen. So it's be prepared for it, and the person who can work through those and resolve them the quicker is the person that's going to be better off. So your VDI solution isn't perfect, you're not perfect, be prepared to manage the glitches. Use the business objectives you defined up front that you choose for your application or for your environment. Use those to define, am I working well? Do I have a glitch? Do I not have a glitch? Do I have a new requirement that's being imposed on me? Use those as some of your guiding light. So environments for success. You go in an organization and we go to help, and Brad said, hey, use a certified partner to help you. So what's going to make you successful? Meet your business objectives, designing for your users' needs as opposed to IT wants. So yeah, I can make a multi-screen desktops and I can do all these things, and it sounds really cool and IT has fun with it, but do what your users need, not what IT wants. Create ownership for the VDI infrastructure. So we've gone in organizations, they're traditionally running PCs, managing PCs, and we start up this VDI environment, new technology, new things, but there's some reluctance for that group to come over and to take a hold and manage it, say, this is mine, right? You got to make sure that you create some ownership, some responsibility, but someone is really earnest champions within the environment. You really need those feed and support those champions that will take hold of that project and make it theirs, someone that will improve upon it. Those are some of the things that really give you the success. Follow the objectives again, design for the users, understand your environments, create the ownership for that environment, and feed and support the champions. So some of the things, in particular healthcare, when users have, and if you see it out at the desk in particular, like I said, I worked a lot of different technologies, but with respect to Oracle technologies, they have the smart card. The smart card is something that you can associate with your desktop. You can put that card in, you get your desktop, you can pull that card, and you can move over to another desktop. So what we find in healthcare, they like that tangible thing that they keep with them. That smart card has a chip on it. They can imprint their photo ID, have a barcode scanner, you can have a magnetic strip scanner, you can have an embedded loop for proximity, and they can put that on a lanyard and put it in and get their desktop. Sure, I can get desktops without cards and go along without that, but they seem to really, really like the tangible, something I can call, this is me, this is my desktop. I like this, that works well. So the fog, in particular with the sun rays, the fog capability is certainly an architectural feature and the fog it allows for active connections across multiple data centers. So I can have multiple data centers, especially talking larger healthcares, be able to actually get my desktop, have that higher availability, and I can get that fog without adding any extra hardware. I don't need F5 load balancers, I don't need these load balancers. They're nice machines, don't get me wrong, but I don't need that equipment to work in a high availability environment. Location awareness. So that nurse who's working in the emergency department, patient comes in, she puts her card in, she does her work, but she may need to finish her work elsewhere. Some of those things is ability to take your card or when you bring up a desktop in a particular location, maybe a particular application comes up for you. I'm in site A, application A comes up. I go over here to site B, put my card in or log in. My desktop comes up, but auto launches another application based on my location. So we have follow me printing, which I talked about a little before, is the ability that the print can go wherever you go. But better, closer tied yet is location awareness, where an application can launch based upon where we're at. So imagine a nurse going from room to room. She goes to room, puts her card in, potentially the location of that where she's at could be tied to the electronic medical records, which brings it up to where she is. So it may not just be healthcare, it could be anywhere where you're at. So location awareness is really another nice feature in healthcare that seems to get a lot of traction. So ultra-thin clients. you really don't want a small PC. For years, you saw it more 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. You saw what a lot of thin clients were out there. What they were is just PC shoved into a smaller box. Really what it was. It's embedded Windows XP, had embedded Windows Internet Explorer 6. So we had a company in Omaha that had called us and said, hey, can you come out and help us? You know, we got to look at some new technology. I said, what do you have now? We got a bunch of thin clients. I won't name a brand, but it has an embedded Windows XP E and it has embedded Windows Explorer 6. I said, okay. And what they did was they upgraded the application that call center was using. And the application now requires Internet Explorer 7 or 8. So this great Windows thin client, not the Windows thin client, but the thin client that they had, couldn't be upgraded anymore to any newer version of Internet Explorer. So they were stuck at the version. So essentially, it's a PC that did the PC shuffle. It's out the door now, right? So you think thin client, longevity, something's going to stick around a while. You want something that's kind of transparent that can run whatever over the years, as many years as possible. You want it to run longer at least than the 3 to 5 years of a regular PC. So in this case, they thought they're kind of buying into it because they were buying a kind of a thick, thin PC. And then they got to the point where they're throwing it out. So ultra thin clients, something that's ultra thin or a zero PC is going to be a lot better off than a small PC. A couple of features, a couple of architectures. These here focus more on the Sunray thin clients and showing you a couple of different architectures that I've seen and have used in schools, small businesses, healthcare. The first vertical is showing the thin clients, showing Oracle VDI with a back end that could be a VirtualBox, ESX, Zen, terminal server, and then storage. Another common, second one over, another common one is the thin clients, Oracle VDI, but then you might have a VirtualBox or an ESX or something with all its own storage. You might have a common template that works across the board, and then you don't have to have multiple templates, you don't have to have shared storage. As long as you got the appropriate IOPS with the included SSDs or hard drives, you know, it's got to be an engineered solution, but those solutions I've seen out there and used. The Sunray Fog, where you might have a multiple Sunrays working with a VMware or a View environment in a hybrid mode. So the key thing here is, do you have a technology that would work with all of the hypervisors in your organization? You know, do you have only some technologies? So pick and choose. It's really, don't just pick the shiny thing. Pick pick the technology that's going to integrate well with your environment, with what you have. I had just another diagram showing, an example of a multi-data center environment where you can drive your desktops, your thin clients off of an active data center. And I certainly would feel free to come up and talk to me afterwards or ask more questions on maybe some of the more details, but that's just a high-level view of what that might look like. So that's all I had. I think, is there 5 minutes left? So.
Yeah, Philip, I think we're going to switch to Q&A, and I think we got 5 minutes, and I don't think there's a mic out there for any of you out there, so you just have to shout loud, and if you're really hungry, go ahead and leave, because I think lunch is next. But any questions? No?
You're not supposed to answer them all up front in the presentation.
They're all solved then, I guess.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.